When we talk about marriage, we often paint it with the colors of love, companionship, and forever. But what we don't talk about enough are the silences, the distance that sometimes grows between two people who once couldn't imagine a day without each other. That distance doesn't usually happen overnight. It creeps in quietly, almost invisibly, until one day a woman wakes up and realizes she feels more alone with her partner than she ever did without him. Let's talk about some of those hidden reasons, because naming them is the first step to healing them. When we think about what makes a marriage fall apart, our minds often go straight to the obvious things: fights, betrayal, money problems, or maybe just time pulling two people in different directions. But one of the most powerful, most invisible forces that can push a woman away from her partner isn't conflict at all. It's emotional neglect. And the tricky thing about emotional neglect is that it doesn't shout, it whispers. It creeps in through silence, through the absence of words, through the lack of presence. And over time, it can be louder than any argument ever could be. Here's the truth: women don't usually grow distant because they stop loving. More often, they grow distant because they stop feeling loved. And that's not about the big gestures, it's about the small, everyday moments where connection could happen, but doesn't. When a woman shares something important about her day and it's brushed off, when she's hurting, but instead of empathy, she gets advice or distraction. When she feels invisible in her own home. These moments seem small in isolation, but they pile up like bricks. And eventually those bricks form a wall between two people. I once heard someone describe it like this: it wasn't the storm that sank the boat, it was the slow leak no one paid attention to. Emotional neglect is that slow leak. It's not explosive or dramatic, but it's exhausting, and it makes a woman feel as though she's carrying the weight of the relationship all by herself. What emotional neglect really does is chip away at one of our deepest human needs, the need to be seen, to be truly seen and known for who we are, not just for the roles we play. In a marriage, a woman may be a wife, a mother, a caretaker, a worker, but beneath all of that, she is still a person longing for recognition, for affirmation, for tenderness. And when her partner stops noticing her, her feelings, her efforts, her dreams, it's like a slow erasure of her identity within the relationship. The tragedy is that many partners don't even realize this is happening. They think everything is fine because the house is in order, dinner is on the table, and there aren't any loud fights. But silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes silence means distance. Sometimes silence means loneliness. Imagine sitting at a dinner table with the person you once couldn't stop talking to, and now it feels like you're sharing space with a stranger. The words are fewer, the laughter is rare, the eye contact is fleeting. And when she reaches for connection and it isn't there, after a while, she stops reaching altogether. Not because she doesn't want closeness, but because the repeated absence of it has taught her it's safer not to expect it. That's what emotional neglect does. It teaches people to shrink their needs, to silence their voices, to numb themselves to the ache of being unseen. And when that happens in a marriage, distance isn't a choice. It's a survival mechanism. It's how a woman protects herself from the pain of wanting something she no longer believes she can have. The heartbreaking part is that many times the love is still there. What's missing is the attention, the listening, the validation. Emotional neglect doesn't kill love immediately. It starves it slowly. It's like forgetting to water a plant. It doesn't wither in a day, but day after day of neglect, and eventually there's nothing left alive. So when we say women grow distant in marriage, We're not just talking about disinterest, we're talking about a deep, unmet hunger for connection. A hunger to be noticed, to be valued, to matter in the daily fabric of the relationship. And until that hunger is acknowledged and fed, distance will keep growing, not out of malice, but out of quiet heartbreak. When we look at what makes a relationship feel heavy for one partner, it's not always the big betrayals or obvious wounds. Sometimes it's the quiet, everyday imbalance that builds up over time until love starts to feel more like labor than partnership. And for many women in marriage, that imbalance shows up in the form of responsibility, both visible and invisible. The visible responsibilities are easier to name: cooking, cleaning, managing finances, running errands, taking care of children if there are any. These tasks can be exhausting on their own, but they at least get noticed. A messy kitchen or an unpaid bill is hard to ignore. But what weighs just as heavily, sometimes even more, is the invisible responsibility that many women carry without recognition. Things like remembering the dentist appointment, buying the birthday gift for the in-laws, making sure the school forms get signed, or keeping track of what groceries are running low. It's the mental load of running not just a household, but an entire life for two people or more. This kind of labor doesn't always show up on a to-do list, but it lives in the background of a woman's mind all day, every day. It's the constant calculation of who needs what, when, and how. It's staying 2 steps ahead to prevent chaos before it happens. And when this responsibility isn't shared, when it's assumed, expected, or taken for granted, it slowly drains the joy out of the relationship. Imagine this: one partner is relaxed on the couch at the end of the day, watching TV, while the other is not just folding laundry, but also mentally running through the schedule for tomorrow, worrying about whether there's enough bread for school lunches, and remembering that the car needs gas in the morning. The imbalance here isn't just about who's doing what, it's about who gets to rest and who never fully does. And when rest isn't shared, neither is the sense of partnership. This imbalance breeds resentment, not because women don't want to contribute, but because contribution without recognition or reciprocity begins to feel like servitude. Love thrives on mutual care, but when care becomes one-sided, it can start to feel like a burden. And resentment has a way of creating distance where intimacy used to be. What's even more painful is that many women feel they can't voice this resentment without being dismissed as complaining. They've been conditioned to be the caregivers, the managers, the ones who just handle things. So when they try to speak up, they're often met with responses like, "Just tell me what to do," or "You worry too much." And those words, though simple, can feel like a dismissal of the very real weight they're carrying. The truth is, women don't want to become managers of their marriage. They don't want to delegate every task or constantly remind their partner of what needs to be done. What they long for is shared responsibility, not just in action, but in awareness. They want their partner to notice the details, anticipate needs, and carry the weight alongside them without having to be asked. Because love isn't just about dividing chores, it's about showing up with equal investment in the life you're building together. Over time, when that doesn't happen, distance becomes a natural byproduct. A woman may begin to withdraw emotionally because she feels like her partner is more of a dependent than a teammate. She may stop sharing her deeper feelings because she doesn't have the energy after managing everything else. And she may even stop asking for help altogether, not because she doesn't need it, but because she's tired of being disappointed when it doesn't come. The saddest part of this dynamic is that many of these marriages still have love at their core. But love alone isn't enough if it isn't backed by shared responsibility. When the weight of responsibility falls on one person's shoulders for too long, love begins to feel like labor, and intimacy gets replaced by exhaustion. A balanced partnership doesn't mean every task is split down the middle. It means both partners are equally engaged, equally invested, equally aware. It means the emotional and practical weight of the relationship is carried together, not silently shouldered by one. Because when responsibility is shared, love feels lighter, but when it's not, distance becomes inevitable, not out of choice, but out of sheer survival. One of the most overlooked truths about love is that intimacy is built on vulnerability. Not the glamorous kind we post about on social media, but the raw, unpolished kind that says, here I am, flaws and all. In a marriage, this willingness to be open and real is what transforms love from routine into something alive. But when vulnerability disappears, when walls go up and masks stay on, love slowly turns into performance. And a relationship built on performance can look fine on the outside while feeling empty on the inside. In the early days of a relationship, vulnerability often comes naturally. Two people stay up late sharing dreams, fears, embarrassing stories from childhood. There's curiosity, there's risk, there's the courage to be seen. But as time goes on, life's responsibilities creep in: careers, children, bills, stress. All of it can create an environment where it feels safer to put on armor than to open up. A husband might hide his worries about work, thinking he needs to appear strong. A wife might hide her frustrations, thinking it's better to keep the peace. Slowly, the marriage becomes less about two people being real with each other and more about two people managing an image of stability. And here's the thing: love can't breathe in that kind of air. Without vulnerability, conversations become surface level. How was your day? Fine. Did you pay the bill? Yes. Everything functions, but nothing flows. It's like living in the same house, but on different islands. What makes this even harder for women in marriage is the cultural expectation to keep everything together. Many women are taught to be the peacemakers, the nurturers, the ones who smooth over conflict and put everyone else's needs first. So when they feel hurt, lonely, or disconnected, instead of saying, I need you, they swallow it down. They perform the role of the steady wife, the capable partner, even when inside they are craving to be held, to be heard, to be reassured. Over time, that suppression creates distance, not because they don't want closeness, but because it feels too risky to ask for it and be met with indifference. Vulnerability requires trust. It requires the safety of knowing that if I show you my messy, imperfect self, you won't turn away. And when that safety isn't present, couples stop showing up honestly. They fight about surface issues like who left the dishes out, but the real issues, fear of being unloved, of being unworthy, of being invisible, stay buried under the performance, and nothing erodes intimacy faster than unspoken truths. The painful irony is that both partners often long for the same thing: closeness. But when closeness requires vulnerability and vulnerability feels unsafe, both retreat behind masks. And soon, the marriage becomes more about roles than relationship. Husband, wife, provider, caregiver, instead of two human beings daring to be fully known by each other. For women, this lack of vulnerability from their partner can feel like abandonment, not necessarily physical abandonment, but emotional. If she can't share her fears without being told she's overreacting, or if he can't open up without shutting down, she learns to keep her inner world to herself. And once she stops sharing that world, the distance grows. It's not a rejection of the marriage, it's self-preservation. Because carrying unmet emotional needs in silence feels safer than exposing them and being disappointed. At its core, the absence of vulnerability strips a relationship of its heartbeat. Love without vulnerability becomes a performance, a routine, a script, and women grow distant not because they don't care, but because living in a performance feels suffocating. What they long for is not perfection. What they long for is realness, the kind of love that can hold imperfection without fear, the kind of connection that says, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. Because in the end, the choice isn't between conflict and peace. It's between authenticity and distance. And without vulnerability, distance will always win. One of the most beautiful parts of falling in love is the curiosity. In the beginning, two people can talk for hours, asking each other everything. What was your childhood like? What's your biggest dream? What scares you? What's your favorite memory? Curiosity fuels intimacy because it communicates, I want to know you. I want to understand you. I want to discover every layer of who you are. But in many marriages, that curiosity fades over time, replaced by assumptions, routines, and the busyness of daily life. And when curiosity disappears, disconnection quietly takes its place. The truth is, people don't stop growing after they say, I do. A woman who stood at the altar years ago is not the same woman standing in the kitchen today. She's been shaped by life, by experiences, by dreams that have shifted and fears that have deepened. She is evolving every day. But if her partner stops asking, stops listening, stops showing interest in who she is becoming, then her growth begins to feel lonely. She grows, yes, but she grows away instead of together. For many women, this is one of the hidden reasons distance creeps in. They don't necessarily want grand romantic gestures or constant attention. What they want is to feel like their partner is still curious about them, still invested in knowing the depths of who they are. They want to be asked questions that go beyond logistics, not just what time is dinner or did you pick up the kids, but how are you really feeling or what's been on your mind lately? When those deeper questions stop, it can feel as though the relationship has gone from a living, breathing connection to a business arrangement. It's easy for couples to assume they already know everything about each other. After all, they've lived side by side for years, maybe even decades. But knowing someone's habits is not the same as knowing their heart. Just because you've shared a home doesn't mean you've stayed present to the inner changes of the person you love. And when that presence is missing, the other person feels unseen. This lack of curiosity also affects intimacy. In the early stages, passion is often fueled by discovery. But when discovery fades, so does the spark. It's not because love is gone, but because connection has stopped being nurtured. A woman may long for her partner to look at her with the same fascination he once did, to notice the new things she's learning, the challenges she's carrying, the ways she's growing. Without that, she can begin to feel invisible, not just as a partner, but as a person. And feeling invisible in the eyes of the person you love most is one of the deepest kinds of loneliness. What makes this even more painful is that many women keep hoping their partner will notice. They drop hints. They share small pieces of their inner world. They wait for the questions that never come. Over time, that unmet longing turns into resignation. They stop opening up, not because they don't want to, but because it hurts too much to feel like no one is listening. And so the distance grows not out of anger, but out of quiet heartbreak. The truth is, curiosity is not a luxury in marriage, it's a necessity. It's what keeps love alive, what keeps people growing together instead of apart. Curiosity says, I'm still choosing you every day. I'm still interested in who you are becoming. I don't want to just live alongside you. I want to know you deeply. Without it, a marriage can survive on logistics, but it cannot thrive on love. So when women grow distant, it's often not because they've stopped loving, but because they've stopped being known. And being known fully, deeply, with curiosity and care is at the heart of what keeps a marriage alive.